All right, so we probably have some more people come in, and welcome to those of you who are here for now. But I don't want to waste time getting to our main event today. We are delighted to have Camilla Roberts here from the Academic Integrity System to tell us about how it is that we can maintain academic integrity in our classes, because we have lots of different modalities, we have lots of different things coming up, and we are near the end of the semester where a lot of projects are due, a lot of exams going on. So I am very excited to hear what Dr. Roberts has to say today. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Roberts. We are very grateful to hear you.
Well, thanks. I am going to attempt to get the screen share going. All right, you should see my PowerPoint now. So I appreciate this opportunity to be able to share with you about academic integrity, and it is very timely because we are, as I'll talk more about in just a little bit, we are seeing a large uptake in cases in my office, and we're about to be going into final exams, which causes a lot of stress for students, which in turn often causes academic integrity concerns. So to kind of get us started a little bit, this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk that academic integrity concerns do occur. As if you have not had a situation in your class yet, at some point you will. Either they haven't been caught, maybe students are getting by with it, but at some point they will occur. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of updates on the numbers for this academic year so far, so you can see where K-State is. I'm going to talk a little bit about just what the research in academic integrity says about why students may cheat and why they don't cheat. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at the fundamental values of academic integrity. And I'll go ahead and say this at the very beginning, is that currently I am serving as president of the International Center for Academic Integrity, which is also known as ICAI. And so you'll hear me talk about ICAI a couple times through this presentation, but K-State is an institutional member of ICAI, and the fundamental values of academic integrity are kind of housed and came about through a lot of work that ICAI has done. I'm going to talk about that K-State is not any different than the things that we're seeing across the nation when I'm talking to colleagues across the nation and really even across the world. Then one of the catchphrases right now in academic integrity is contract cheating. And so I want to make sure I talk a little bit about what that is and how you might see contract cheating occur in your classes and how we might be able to stop that from occurring. And then I'm going to finish up with probably a good part of our presentation will be about some best practices and what can be done in your classes, both face-to-face and in the online classes. And then we'll finish up of, okay, really, we're at the tail end of the semester. What can we do now? And then looking at the spring, what are some action items, things that you might be able to think about for your spring classes? So I said academic integrity concerns do occur. They are going to happen. And so these are some kind of very concerning numbers but I want to make sure that you're aware of them. And some of these numbers I had shared with Faculty Senate in our annual report, but some of these are newer numbers as of today. So just looking back at the entire academic year, the academic year of 18 and 19, I had 162 cases come through the office, which was for 195 students. So if you think about, some of the cases have more than one student. During the 1920 academic year, you can see a huge growth of cases. I had 349 cases. We're representing 396 students. So if we think about just the academic year, that was a huge increase. But then breaking it down a little bit more into the different semesters, spring of 2019, there were 97 cases. In spring of 2020, there were 278 cases, with 238 of those coming after spring break. So after we transitioned to 100% online learning. Then in the summer, which we were still, of course, online learning, summer of 19, there were only 4 cases, which actually was a high number of cases for summer sessions. Summer of 2020, there were 25 cases. Now, there might have been more students taking summer classes, possibly, but still, it was quite an increase. Then if we look back just in the fall the fall semesters, and so some data from that I tallied today. Fall of 2019, so through November 4th, 2019, I had 24 cases. As of today, for the fall semester, I've had 120 cases. So what does that mean, other than I'm working a lot and probably will need some support at some point, because it is myself and a graduate student. We're the only ones in the office. So you can see that our workload has drastically increased. But we're really, as I talk to colleagues, we're not 100% sure why. We definitely think that moving online definitely has an impact on that. But we definitely think that it's a two-way streak. And so you'll hear me talk about that the students have to come to the table with certain information and to a certain willingness to learn the material, but the professors and the instructors of the course also have to come to the table with trying to figure out how can we teach in this new environment that might be hybrid or 100% online. So just wanted to have you know those numbers and see those numbers ahead of time. So if we think about why students cheat, and this is based upon a lot of research that has been done in the past of even self-reported data of talking with students about why do these things occur. And some of these are very straightforward, probably would have thought about it. There is a pressure to succeed. Some things I didn't put the graph up there for you, but for the 2019-2020 academic year, over 30% of our cases came from seniors, and over 30% of our cases came from juniors. So our freshmen were only, I believe it was 16% of our cases only came from freshmen. So many faculty and staff on campus think that this is a problem with our freshmen, our undergraduates, our underclassmen. But we're seeing that more and more upperclassmen are the ones that are actually getting reported. And that makes sense with the pressure to succeed. They are in their major classes. They have to make a C or better in many of them. They also know that they have to maybe maintain a certain grade to maintain their scholarship. They're seeing what's coming after their undergraduate career, and they realize, wow, I need to bring up my GPA for maybe some mistakes I made as an undergrad or an underclassman. So there's that pressure to succeed. Students also might cheat because what they think might be fair. They see others do it. And so they think, well, if other people are doing it, I have to do it too, to make sure that my grade is going to be the same as other people's grades. I'm not saying these reasons why people cheat are valid reasons, but they're the reasons that students are telling us. The material, the students might think the material is trivial or irrelevant. And I think we've all had those experiences that we've been in classes that we just didn't quite understand when we would ever use this material again. And it does take a lot of extra energy and motivation to be able to spend time and learn that information to do well on a test or take time to actually do those assignments. I mean, it's something that I'm working with even my elementary children, just saying when they're asking, well, when am I ever going to use this math? Well, when we are cooking, we're going to be using this math. So trying to teach them, when are you actually going to be using this information? But the students who think that it might be trivial or irrelevant, they're not spending the time on it. But then when they get to the test, they know that they have to get a certain grade. And that's why they might copy off of somebody, look up information they shouldn't, because they haven't spent the time and energy to learn the material. What we are seeing quite a bit, or what I'm hearing quite a bit from students actually this semester, is that students are saying the course is just too hard or faculty are unreasonable. And I'll talk more about just some things that faculty can do, or at least to kind of assess your own courses to determine how much work are you giving the student. Transition to an online learning environment or even hybrid, so they're online some of the time, is very difficult for a lot of our students. They are not used to that. They are not used to the amount of reading that might occur, and just even sitting there looking at the screen when they can normally be in a classroom. They might see you working a problem on the board. And so some of these students might say the course is too hard, but it might also be that they just don't maybe understand how they should now study in this hybrid or online learning environment. But when the course is too hard, they feel that they think the only way they can pass it is if they use unauthorized aid or unauthorized collaboration. Students sometimes cheat because of poor management, poor time management. We see this especially with the contract cheating, when people are having somebody else do their work. They might pay for it. They might pay for a paper online. They might post something online for somebody else to answer because they've run out of time, but they need to submit an assignment. And then the last reason of why students might cheat is that they might not know what constitutes cheating. And that's something, of course, my office is trying to get across, to educate students about what is academic dishonesty and what is not. But I would ask also you in the classroom to talk about, what does integrity mean to you? To talk about what is authorized and what is unauthorized for them to do, either on their assignments, their homework, and especially on their tests. So again, it's not an excuse for students to cheat or a valid reason, but it's something that students might lead to cheating when they might not know exactly what is allowed and what is not. So on the more positive side, we definitely have a lot of students who don't cheat, who do their work to the best to their own ability. And so thinking about those individuals, why don't they cheat? And so these are the things that we need to really be focusing on as an institution and in our classrooms, to have more of these students who choose not to violate the honor code. The first one is that peer environment. When we talk about academic integrity across a university, a lot of times we will talk about a culture of academic integrity, because it's not just, again, the students doing something or the faculty members doing something. It is about everybody thinking that academic integrity is a very important part of the institution. When I talk to students, I often talk to them about the integrity of the degree that they are working towards. It's beneficial that I also do have a degree from K-State, my PhD's from K-State, so I can tell them directly that I am relying on those students, the current students at K-State, to uphold the integrity of a degree. I want, if I ever were to leave K-State and I hand somebody my resume and it says I have a PhD from K-State, that they know that Kansas State University is a good institution, that the students know their material, they don't take shortcuts, and it has that integrity of academic integrity, the culture of academic integrity. So that peer norm, if they don't think other people are doing it, they're not going to do it. Some students look at their upbringing and even just their self-respect and their values and the morals. And so these are actually conversations that you can have with students about, would you have chosen to do this? Would you be comfortable telling your parents that you did this? And for students who say no, then it kind of starts the conversation of, well, why did this occur? And what changes can you do in the future if they did kind of do something against their values and their morals? But talking about ethics, that's something that is very essential for all of our undergraduate students and graduate students. We want our students, when they end K-State, when they leave K-State, that they have a high level of ethics. They can understand how to make good decisions, ethical decisions. And so talking about values and morals and ethics is very important, and I would encourage you to do that with your students. Some students don't cheat because there are consequences. They don't want to. They're scared of those consequences. They might lose a scholarship, or their home country might not sponsor them anymore if they have a certain grade, or if they've had an academic integrity violation. So sometimes just the consequences would lead students not to cheat. If there's a chance of being caught, then there is also less cheating. Even though my office does not report who has reported violations, we won't say, just like we don't say the student's name, we won't tell the professor's name, we don't say, oh, this person has submitted this number of violations. But students talk. We do know that. And so students will know that a certain college or a certain department, or maybe even a certain professor, is very much of a fan, to a certain degree, of reporting violations, that they are going to take the time and energy and be very vigilant in their grading and their examination of the students' assessments to figure out, has there been an academic integrity violation. So we've had sometimes in the past, there have been departments and colleges on campus that have really changed their culture, and their students know that they're going to be held accountable, and so they has a less likelihood for them to actually have that violation. And then students often don't cheat because they are committed to learning. We do have fantastic students at K-State, so I don't want to have you think about the high numbers that we've seen, because I mean, we think about it was last year 396 students. Well, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of students that compared to the number that we have at K-State, but it's still a good number, a high number. And so, but we do have a lot of students who are very committed to learning. They want to learn the material, they will do the extra work, and hopefully you've had experience and seen those students, because those are the students that will really help anybody in the learning atmosphere. That motivates you. You see your students who are committed to learning, that motivates you to be committed to teaching them. So those are the reasons why students cheat and students don't cheat. And so now I want to talk a little bit about those fundamental values and how you might be able to see these fundamental values be shown both as an individual, as a student, but also as an institution. So the first fundamental value is honesty. That kind of makes sense with academic integrity, but it's the idea of being truthful, giving credit to those who influenced your work in terms of thinking about plagiarism, providing factual information. So when we talk about students of, did they really go to the doctor? Did their grandmother or grandfather really pass away? But providing that factual information. And then also aspiring to objectivity. So considering all sides and one's own potential preconceptions, and being open to hearing other sides, but understanding where you stand. The second fundamental value is trust. And this is something that is very, for some students, it's very hard to trust a professor. And so for some professors, it's very hard to trust the students. But trust has to be the central part of the relationship between students and professors. And it has to be both sides. But if we think about from the professor's side, clearly stating expectations, promoting transparency, and that's also on the institutional level. We all want our institution in K-State to be very transparent, so we know where money is going, how hiring processes are going. Encouraging mutual understanding and acting with true genuineness. That is how the trust, that relationship is going to be built between students and faculty. The third fundamental value is fairness. And we have all kinds of students at K-State. You all know that. But to be truly fair, we need to apply the rules and policies consistently. And so that means when you're thinking about if I should report something, well, what does your syllabus say? My syllabus says that I will report every violation, and this will be a standard sanction, or maybe your syllabus says I will go up to an XF, but you have ability to change those sanctions. So looking at what are the policies that you created in your own class, and how are you applying those fairly across the board? Are you applying them consistently? Also, being fair means engaging with others equitably, and also taking responsibility for our own actions. I think that this is something that's very important as a faculty member and an instructor, and I also see it as a parent, that we're not all perfect. Sometimes we make mistakes. Maybe we mistakenly grade off and mark a question wrong when it should have been correct, or maybe the student actually did have a valid reason for something occurring. And maybe you have to say, I'm sorry, but taking responsibility for your actions when we do make mistakes, that being fair and being honest is going to build that trust. So then we have three more fundamental values. The next one is respect. Our students want to be respected just like you want to be respected as a faculty member. And we'll talk a little bit more that when a violation occurs, many professors feel that they have lost the respect of the student, that the student is no longer respecting them and their hard work. But we can still continue to try to build that respect in that relationship. So practice active listening, receiving feedback willingly, seek open communications, and recognizing the consequences of our actions on others, so that it's not, so when we talk to our students, that an academic integrity violation doesn't just impact them, but it impacts their professor, because you might have to redo an assignment, change the way you're assessing things. It might affect other students, because maybe you're now not going to give the extra credit because you can't trust the students. So it might still impact all other individuals in the class. The next fundamental value is that responsibility. And this kind of goes back to fairness and applying the rules and policies consistently, but it's making sure you know those rules and policies, that we do have an honor and integrity system, that we are expecting you to file a report. We'll talk about some other reasons why you should file a report, even though there might not be an exact rule that you have to file a report in every situation. But we encourage you to know and at least know your resources to understand the rules and the conduct code. And then the last fundamental value, which was actually added by the International Center for Academic Integrity several years after the first 5 fundamental values were kind of designed and understood. And that fundamental value is courage, because you have to have courage to be able to live out any of the other 5 fundamental values. You have to have courage to be honest. You have to have courage to have trust. It's very hard to trust people sometimes. You have to have courage to be fair, courage to have respect, and courage to have responsibility. And so it is very difficult sometimes to take a stand and address wrongdoing, to be brave when others might not be. For our students, I have had a few students this year who have reported violations to either their professor or to me directly. And so that takes a lot of courage for that student to stand up. And so you as a professor can also have that courage, being willing to take a risk and risking failures. So those 6 values of academic integrity, talked through a little bit about how they impact professors in particular and those in front of a classroom. But I do, oops, sorry, I went too fast. I do have one document that I'd be happy to send to anybody, and I can provide it to TLC to be able to post as a PDF that you can feel free to share with students. This is something that we created actually in the spring, but looking at the fundamental values of academic integrity while remote teaching and especially learning. And so if we think about some of the particular things of what this means to a student, and I would encourage you to talk to your students about this, but understanding that the remote environment may look different. Hopefully they've realized that by now, that it is going to look different, but they need to ask for clarification. That we encourage them to use university-sponsored tutors. Our university-sponsored tutors and hired tutors, whether through it's the Academic Support Center, or if they're an athlete through athletics, College of Engineering has tutors that they hire. Those tutors have the training so they know exactly where the line is between helping and doing. And so that is something you might think about putting into your syllabus, saying that students are allowed to go to tutors, but they can't just go to their roommate as a tutor. It has to be somebody who has been trained in how to help somebody appropriately without just doing the work for them. We encourage students to remember their values and act on them, to focus on learning the material rather than just doing the bare minimum. Knowing what is allowed and what is not allowed. Avoiding the help sites, and I'll talk more about these in just a little bit, such as Chegg, Course Hero, Study Blue, Study Soup. And so we'll talk definitely a lot more about those, but we encourage our students to avoid those in any situation. And then we also are, of course, encouraging our students to say something if they see someone act without integrity. They can either file the report or they can inform you. So like I said, I'm willing to give this JPEG and or PDF if you're interested in passing it on to your students, and we'll make sure that it's posted along with this presentation individually, so you can definitely pull it out. So like I said at the beginning, K-State is not any different than anybody else right now. Now that should make us feel a little bit better that those numbers are common across, but there's been a lot of information about and questions about going online or going to a hybrid method. Has that caused an increase in cheating? I mean, just this past week, I talked to a student who is a high school student who was doing a report on, or actually a news article for their school newspaper on cheating in an e-learning environment. Also talked to San Francisco Chronicle because they were doing an article about academic integrity in the online environment. So it's something that is coming out in a lot of news sources right now, which means it's, again, not just K-State, it's happening other places. The University of California, San Diego, their director of their academic integrity program is a well-known individual in academic integrity research and has been a former president of ICAI. And she recently did post on their website that in the academic year 1920, they had a 79% increase of cases as compared to the academic year 1819, which is very similar to what we saw. If not, we saw even more. I put out several of the articles that are coming from either the spring or even just recently in August. Cheating rising with online education. There's a paranoia about cheating. It's making online education terrible for everyone. How to discourage student cheating on online exams. Some of the things that we are definitely seeing at K-State is using Chegg and or Course Hero. Course Hero has not been as used as Chegg has, but I have some colleagues that all of their students are using Course Hero and not using Chegg. For those of you who do not know, those two websites are, well, Chegg in particular is a website that you do have to have a membership to be able to see the answers and to post questions. And so what our students are doing is that they are getting the question either from an assignment or even during a test and posting it on Chegg. Then Chegg pays people across the world to answer those questions. Then the student is then able to copy and paste and oftentimes those Chegg answers and turn them in as their own. Unfortunately for the student, fortunate for the professor, many times those Chegg answers are incorrect, or they have been, they don't do it the same way that this professor has taught, or the way that the textbook teaches how to do that problem. And so that's an easy way that professors can see, oh, it looks like they copied from Chegg. As a side note, just so you're aware, this was sent out early in the semester, but please spread the word. My office does have a Chegg account, so you do not, as a professor, have to pay in and pay that monthly fee because we don't want Chegg to keep getting more and more money. So we don't all want to have that account. So if you are concerned, you can look on Chegg and you can do some searches to see if your question is on there, but you wouldn't be able to see the answer. So you can easily send me the URL. I can then send you back a PDF of what the question is and then of the full answer that's listed on Chegg. And then you can compare the answers with what the student has provided. I can then also contact Chegg, and Course Hero is very, very much the same. We can contact them. They can give us the information about who posted the question and when that was posted, and also who has viewed that question and when that was viewed. So we are here. My office is here to help you in dealing with Chegg. So in spring of 2020, I've contacted Chegg to have 25 times to have 221 individual URLs removed from their site. There were questions that K-State professors had written that had shown up on Chegg. And so far in the fall, I've contacted Chegg 12 times for 36 individual URLs. So that is definitely a trend that we are seeing at K-State, and I'll talk more when we get to the best practices, especially about what you can do to maybe deter students from going onto those sites. Two other things that we're seeing, especially this semester, are GroupMe apps and group texts. Well, those in and of themselves are not bad. In fact, many professors might encourage students to get together in a group chat or a group text so they can ask questions of their peers, to be able to say, hey, do we have something due today? Or is today an online class versus an in-person class? Something like that. But what we've seen is that some of these students are using these apps in one situation to actually talk about and then create a Zoom link and share even that Zoom link with other students of, hey, let's all take the test together and we can all be on Zoom at the same time so we can talk about the test. With the group text, we've seen students who are texting during the actual exam questions. What's the answer to this? Did you get this? So in both of those, we're very thankful that we do have some very honest students, and those students took screenshots of those text messages and were able to share them with the instructor, who was then able to file those reports. But please be aware that that is occurring, and it's occurring with a lot of students now, especially at K-State. So I said that I would talk a little bit about contract cheating, and the definition from the website contractcheating.com says, contract cheating describes the form of academic dishonesty where students get academic work completed on their behalf, which they then submit for academic credit as if they had created it themselves. So basically, if they're having anybody do their work. There was a very recent article from the South Florida Times that contract cheating companies tempt time-strapped students, which is very accurate. They have all the information out there, and they're telling students in their advertisement that no need to spend all this time on doing your paper. We can do it for you. We can send you a paper no matter what length in 24 hours. Just provide us with your credit card information. So when we think back to why students cheat, the lack of time management, and then these cheating companies are really targeting in on that, saying, hey, it's okay. You've run out of time. We can help you with that. So just last month, there was actually an International Day of Action Against Contract Cheating. And ICAI, so again, the International Center for Academic Integrity, really looked at what are the behaviors that we see that students are doing with contract cheating sites. And so I listed some of the behaviors that we saw, and I've definitely seen these behaviors with our students, that the students are looking to internet sites for the exact question. So you give them a question, the first thing they do is they pop up on and do a Google search or going to Chegg and saying, has this question been asked? If the student is unable to find it, they post it. And then of course they copy it directly. And then what's very concerning is that students are attempting to hide their online activities from the institutional authorities, so myself and you, by not making their name visible. And I've had many conversations with Chegg and even with our general counsel office to determine, can we force Chegg to give names? And without a subpoena, we can't really do that. But some of our students do use their K-State email address. Some use a Gmail account but have their name on there. And then I am very thankful that I have worked recently with our IT department, and they have actually been able to determine who some students are, even if they've had a random, even just numerical and alphabetic Gmail account that would have no other connection with that student, but they've been able to help to provide that information. But students, this is showing me that students know that they probably shouldn't be doing this when they're attempting to hide those activities. But we're also, of course, seeing some concerns with the contract cheating sites as well. So if we think about what we want to do because of that, we see those actions that students are doing. There are some things that we can do on an individual level. As an entire institution, there are some institutions that are blocking certain internet sites. So blocking the accessibility to Chegg or Course Hero, especially if you are on K-State's campus. Now that wouldn't stop a student who was off campus, but that is something some institutions are doing. I will actually give you some examples in just a second of some very strong syllabus statements telling students that they can avoid these sites or to avoid these sites, and that possibly even looking at them could be an academic integrity violation. Things that we can do is we can talk to our students and really talk to them and help them understand that there is a difference between looking for an answer online and thinking that they understand the thought process to generate that answer versus actually truly understanding it. Because it's very easy to look at the question and see it worked out and be like, oh yeah, I understand how to do that. But then when you're given the question, you really don't. Then, of course, we're constantly trying to create resources for students, writing workshops, tutoring centers, counseling services, because stress does lead to certain violations in academic integrity, because we want to support their academic success. And so K-State does do a very good job about that, but but right now, sometimes we have to be a little bit more proactive to help our students, especially our freshmen, get those resources, because some of them might not be on campus very often. They might not have made that connection with somebody. And so we need to make sure they are definitely aware of those resources. And then we can look at how your assessments and the assignments and examinations are developed, because there are some that are more resistant to cheating than others. There's probably not something that would be cheating proof, and no cheating could ever occur, especially in the online environment, but there are some that can be resistant to it. So at this point, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and kind of give you some of the best practices and things that you can take away from this. And we'll go through some of them pretty fast, because it's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to talk about it in two different parts. The first part is prior to a violation. And then when that violation occurs, what are some best practices for after the violation does occur? So prior to the violation, we know, and I mentioned earlier, that the online environment is very similar to the face-to-face environment. And so it's important that we do these best practices, no matter if it is a online environment or a face-to-face environment. So if we think back to our syllabus, and this again, this isn't something you can do for this semester, but it's something you can think about for next semester. And so these are actual examples of some syllabus statements that I've worked with professors at K-State to figure out how can information be put out there that's very clear that for this situation, that the student should not use or even access websites such as Cramster or Chegg, which present fully worked out solutions. I also like the idea of this part of the syllabus, because it really talks about the idea of professionalism, because you all know, hopefully, that all of your syllabi should have a little statement about the academic integrity policy, about the honor pledge. But this goes beyond that to saying, hey, we want you to be a professional individual. And this is not just things that you're learning for your time at K-State, but it's things that you're learning for your time to be a professional after you graduate from K-State. Another example is explaining that students are allowed to work with other people, but they're also, in this class in particular, the student had to say, I worked with so-and-so. That means you then have the ability to compare those to see, okay, these two individuals said they worked together, but I see that they did still they got the same answer, but they came about it in different ways. And so it talks about also the respect of you all who put time and energy into information or into teaching them. And then it talks about the idea that we want our students to be able to say that they succeeded while they're here at K-State. A couple more syllabus statements. This one is, again, talking about the honor code. But if you look at the fifth line down, it says, if asked, the student should be able to explain and support any submission in this class. So that means that you could talk to them and bring them in and say, hey, what do you mean by this? Or can you explain your thought process in this? And if they just copied it from a friend or copied it from Chegg, they wouldn't have that information or be able to do that. But it's a good way to tell students that you need to be able to explain everything that you turn in. And then the last syllabus statement that I wanted to mention is that some professors are very upfront and honest, saying these are the most common violations that I've seen in this class, and this is how you can avoid it. And so for this one, the first one was plagiarism, and then they went on and talked about unauthorized collaboration, but talking to your students about what have you seen, or how can you avoid these common violations that you have seen possibly in your classes or maybe in your department. Prior to the violation, you can also set some expectations. This actually did come from a syllabus, but it's more than just the syllabus information, but it's the idea that if you're expecting your students to cite an APA style of citation, take time to make sure they understand APA, even if they're a junior or a senior, and you think, well, they should know this by now. This professor might not have taken a lot of time to actually look at and actually talk about APA, but the individual had, I believe, probably 5 or 6 pages within the syllabus about APA. So she knew that she had set the expectations, and then she also gave the students the tools needed to uphold those expectations. Some other things with setting expectations: don't assume they know things. The assignment guidelines, making sure that you're very aware of what you're going to allow, what you're not, and being very clear, and putting that possibly in multiple locations for the students. Reviewing the assessments so the students know what they can expect, so it's not a surprise to them. Talking about what you'll do if the violation occurs, and discuss your expectations for students. Do you expect that they come to class every day? Do you expect that they put their phones away when they're in class? Do you expect that if possible they have their camera on when you're doing a Zoom class? But then you also share what they can expect from you. And then, like I've said before, discuss why you value academic integrity. And overall, it's letting your students know that you care about them. When students have relationships with professors, if they respect the professors and they feel that mutual respect, mutual trust, they are much less likely to violate an academic integrity policy, because they don't want to hurt that relationship. When you're thinking about assigning group assignments and collaboration, again, it goes back to expectations. Establish roles, or tell the students that they have to establish roles. Encourage the students to review work, that it is a group project, and everybody's name is on that. Talk to them that they are all really held accountable for everybody's information. You can encourage students to document what students did what. Even though everybody's responsible for the final project, you might be able to then go back and be concerned about, especially in one area. But we also are encouraging our students to tell a professor if they realize that, hey, my group member 1 is maybe not doing any work, or I think they copied everything, or I think they bought the information online, to come up and tell you that. And then encourage the students to gain permission from you, explain how the assignment was created, to never provide electronic copies of assignments to their fellow students. And then, of course, just any kind of cybersecurity is protecting the laptops, files. We've had several situations where students have lived in a communal living environment where one student has ended up saving the document on the desktop and maybe not signing out, or maybe it was even something they didn't have to sign out for. Another student comes, sees that, copies it, because it was not saved correctly, protected. And so talk to our students about that idea of cybersecurity. So if we think about group work, we've got these 3 mazes. You got the top maze with 3 individual mazes, 3 individual mice, all in their own maze. You have the second picture, which you have the 3 mazes again, and the 3 mice are all talking. Then you have the third set of mazes, and you see the 3 mice standing on top of one another. And the question is, which maze constitutes cheating? And if we think about it, there's really not the right answer. It all depends on the expectations. And so, especially when it comes to authorized or unauthorized collaboration, which is what you're seeing here with these mice, you have to be very clear in what are your expectations of what is authorized and what is unauthorized collaboration. So that first one, maybe that was the expectation was everybody had to do everything individually. They weren't able to talk. The second one was, okay, you can talk with each other, you can figure out a plan, but then you each have to go in and do it individually. And the third one is saying, okay, the 3 of you work together and you're only going to turn in 1 assignment, or they're going to go through the maze together as 1 person or 1 individual. And so these pictures really do show that we have to be clear in the expectations, because looking at the picture, we wouldn't know what constitutes cheating unless we had those expectations set in place. So thinking about the online world, like I said, it's not much different from the in-person realm in terms of academic integrity. Yes, teaching and assessing and learning in the online world is very different, and I think that everybody is still trying to get used to that. But the idea of academic integrity is not much different. It is important to build the rapport, get to know your students. How you can do that is providing that prompt feedback. I have talked to several students this semester, and that's one of the concerns that they're sharing with me is that faculty members aren't getting information back to them. They don't know where they stand. We all know that we are very stressed. We're doing a lot of things. And so I would just encourage you to prioritize giving feedback to your students, especially as we're about to go away, and you're not going to see them if you are even seeing them at all in person. You're not going to see them much longer, and they need to be able to understand where they stand and maybe where they can improve before those final exams. Consider the course policies in your academic integrity, an academic integrity syllabi quiz. This is something you can do, especially for the spring, to prepare, to make sure the students understand. We do have a quiz on academic integrity on our website. It's on the front page, and so you can easily assign that students have to do. Maybe they have to give you a screenshot that they completed it, but that's an easy way to show that students have actually gone through at least a short quiz. They understand that we have the honor and integrity system and what it means. This is something that K-State has worked on for several months now, but making sure our students have the appropriate technology and getting them right resources if they don't. Helping our students understand how they're going to be assessed. We would encourage, in terms of academic integrity, to assess frequently. We'll talk more about high stakes assessments in just a little bit, but we would definitely encourage you to assess frequently and not have those as many high stake assessments, because again, those high stake assessments cause that high level of stress, which then could cause an academic integrity violation. Use regular discussion posts if you want to use discussion boards, and then foster that collaboration in that learning management system in Canvas. So that's the way you can interact with the students. Students can interact with each other and build that relationship. So we know that there are sometimes that we want to have proctoring. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about proctoring. And I know that K-State at this point has the idea that if it wasn't a class through Global Campus, that would already normally have some sort of proctoring service set up within the class, that the student would have to pay for the proctoring service. And so for many departments and colleges, they've said, we're not going to use proctoring services. We don't want to pass that cost on to the student. But those are some of the things that when you think about should a test be proctored or not, who will pay for that? Will the university? Will the student? There are various different types of online proctoring. There's live proctoring, and that is sometimes even what you might choose to do as a Zoom, either having everybody log on to Zoom and have their cameras on while you're kind of watching them take their test, or as an individual, which is sometimes what the proctoring services might do. There's recorded proctoring. So unless there's a red flag that you need to go back to the video to watch, somebody's not watching the video constantly. And then there's some automated proctoring systems that would watch a student and could understand, would watch their demeanor and how they're acting, maybe some moves they make to cause maybe a red flag to be able to review that part of that video. So the question is it necessary? And many of the people in academic integrity positions will say, no, it's actually not 100% necessary, because you can create assignments that will deter academic dishonesty. And so that's some things that I can help work with you. Teaching and Learning Center can help. We actually, the ICAI did put on a webinar late April, I believe, all about creating assessments that would not need proctoring, online assessments. And so I'd be happy to share with you that link. If you're interested in figuring out how do I create that assessment that it doesn't matter whether my students are proctored, but I can still trust my students to do their own work. Because some of the things you have to think about for proctoring is Is it going to be distracting for the student? For some students, if you're doing a Zoom proctoring session and you have them have their sound on and their video on, you might have 30 or 40 students, and now we're getting all the background noise. We're all at our individual homes. We might have pets. We have construction going on outside. All those noises could be coming and distracting other students. So it's some things to think about when you're thinking about, should I have some sort of online proctoring, or even you actually proctoring the test? So we know that violations do occur, and I know my time is, I've got about 8 minutes left, and we should be able to get through these things that I want to talk about for after the violation. But the first thing that you're going to have to realize is you're going to have some feelings about having had an honor pledge violation in your class. I mean, I've listed out several of those feelings, and so the best thing is to realize them, to recognize them, and to understand that it's probably not best that I confront the student when I am still really angry or infuriated. Yes, you can still be confused, you can still feel disrespected, and it's important to explain that to the student, to say, this is what, when you did this, I felt this. That's going to help that student understand that it's not just about them, but their action affected other people as well. After the violation, we of course want you to document and report it. I've put our website on there. On the left-hand toolbar is where our report form is located. But to think about ahead of time, what is the things that you might need if you were needed to document something, if you needed to report a violation. You need that strong syllabus. You need that information saying the students are allowed to do A, B, and C. You need those assignment guidelines, the assignment in question. You'll have to write up a statement about what occurred, and maybe any other, you'll have to figure out if any other information is needed. Maybe other students reported something, or maybe you have background information, something like that. You might have other information. So at K-State, unless you are taking a grade away, so if you allow a student to make up 100% of their grade, now they might not earn 100%, but if you're allowing them to make up 100%, up to that 100%, you actually do not have to file the report because you're not taking anything away. But if you're taking anything away from the student, that is when you are required to report a violation, because that student has to have the due process. But it's very important because it helps us track violators. I cannot tell you as a reporter whether a student has had a previous violation or not, but we keep those records within our office. Also, you reporting it will protect you from legal redress because we have established academic procedures and you're following those academic procedures. So the university will be able to support you should anything occur from that student. And then it holds those students accountable, helps their ethical development. Some of the conversations that we encourage you to have with the students, we want them, again, to be thinking about how do you build a relationship with this student. So someone needs to be that student-centered. Talk to the student about how the semester is going. Don't just say, you're a cheater, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about. And so remembering that the suspicion that you might have of academic dishonesty is not who the student is as a person. The student is much more than just that one event. Talk about and be very upfront and honest about why you're meeting with the student, because when the student meets with me, I'm going to be very upfront and honest about what have I received, where do I see this going, do I think that they have a valid reason to contest or not, even though it's still their choice. So I'm going to be very upfront and honest, so I encourage you to do that as well. Help the student reflect on what occurred. And does it reflect the values of K-State or of your department or your degree program? And then think about how are you and the student going to move forward? In some cases, and actually in many cases, the student's still going to be in your class. So how are you going to move forward that you're not going to look at that student as somebody who cheated, but also they're not going to be nervous that that's the way you're looking at them. So having open conversations to understand that, and help them understand that they are still a student, that you still really want them to succeed in this class if it's a violation that allows them to still be in the class. So some other examples of preserving the relationship, be very specific, present congruent messages. So don't be saying, I really want to help you, but then be very closed off. So in this time of online, I encourage you to do these via Zoom so you can have that facial interaction face to face with that student, even if it's over the computer. Be honest, encourage honesty, describe the incident, be problem focused, validate the student that life is really hard right now, but that doesn't mean that they should have done A, B, or C. And then communicate with that student and use those active listening techniques. So how do you move forward? Some of the things that don't have hard, fast rules or answers, but you have to think about it. And I'd be happy to be able to discuss this with you if you're in these situations, but you have to think about, do you say anything to the class? If it was a large class situation, maybe those group texts, maybe you do. Maybe you say, hey, I'm aware this has happened, and I would encourage you to use extreme caution in these group chats. Or you can say, hey, I know that a lot of people are looking on Shed. Please don't do that, whatever it might be. You have to think about, do you change the assignment? Maybe you've learned about a plan to have that Zoom call for the exam. Do you change how you do that exam at that point? Or do you change it for the next semester? How do you revamp your syllabus, especially for the next semester? Think about how you're going to move forward personally and professionally, remembering all those feelings that you had. How are you going to overcome those feelings? And then helping that student move forward personally and professionally. And then really what the honor and integrity system focuses on is education. And we think that when there's a violation that comes reported to us, our goal is that it's not just an educational time for the students going through the process, but it's also an educational time for the professor, that maybe there's something that you can do, that you reflect on, that, hey, I can help future students from avoiding this similar situation. So I'd be happy to talk through those questions with you, again, if you're in those situations, because there's not a right or wrong answer to any of those. So we've got 2 more weeks in person, then 1 more remote, and then exam. So what can be done? You're not going to be changing your syllabus at this point. You're not changing and saying your final exam is only worth 5% of the grade because you haven't done all the other percentages to add up that. But you are able to think about the structure of your final exam right now that could deter academic dishonesty. Thinking about time limits, both how long a student has to access it once they start, and the window of time that they have to even start that. Using the tools on Canvas to have multiple questions that they are randomized for each student, or at a minimum randomizing the answers or where the questions fall on the exam. Giving feedback to students on previous work, let them know where they stand, so that might relieve some of the stress that they have going into those final exams. And then please make yourself available. And I know many of you are, but again, tell your students, remind them that these are the times I'm going to be on Zoom, or I'm going to be in my office on campus, especially during dead week on that Zoom, when they probably are back home, and that's when they're going to be studying, and they're going to have those questions, and they can't just pop into your office. So make those times available. And then thinking a little bit longer, what can you do in the spring? Think about whether your assessments really do show you that the student has learned what you want them to learn. Review those high-stake assessments. Are there ways that you can figure out, has the student learned, by using series of smaller, lower-stake assessments? Be very accessible to students. That helps build those relationships. Ask yourself, how much is too much? Especially after you've had this semester, you might learn a lot and be able to prepare better for next semester, that, wow, that was a little bit too much for my students, or maybe too much for you in grading and responding to students. And build in time to talk about integrity. We've talked about that a lot today. Talk about what it means to you, the fundamental values, and then accept the feedback that you're going to be getting this semester. We know everything's going to be different and might not be the best feedback from students that you've ever had, but some of those students are going to give you some good feedback, and take that and use that for the future. So just some concluding thoughts is that, remember, violations will occur. And we don't know 100% if it's because we're going online. We don't know if it's because students are stressed. We don't know whether faculty members are being more vigilant. We just know they are occurring, and our numbers are going up. But overall, students want connections. They want connections with somebody on campus. I mean, that is what's going to retain our students anyway, is they feel a connection at K-State. And you have that ability as a professor, as a faculty member, to make that connection. And then you, as a faculty member, if you're in charge of a class, you have a chance to make assessments that will not lend themselves to academic misconduct. So if you see there at the bottom, our brand is the family built on trust. And you see the U and the S for us is in purple. And the main reason for that is, again, it's not just the role of the student to have a high level of academic integrity, but it's also the faculty, it's our staff, it's everybody, it's us as the entire K-State community has to have a high level of academic integrity to have that culture of academic integrity. So I know I don't have a lot of time. I'm willing to stay longer if people have questions, but sorry, I went a little bit over. So I'll turn it over to Don or Tucker, and I'll stop sharing as well.
So first of all, I want to thank you, Camilla, by sharing that wonderful information. It was very comprehensive, everything from the motivations, why people would cheat, how they would cheat, and then how we can prevent and then intervene if it actually has happened. For anyone who needs to get off now, because we are at a little past 1, I just do want to put on your radars for next week. We have an event that is called Engaging and Supporting First Generation Students, a Multimodal Approach, presented by Rebecca Paz, Kylie Moody, and Greg Eislein. And then the week after that, our presentation is called Mental Health 101 by Cody Wallace in the Counseling Center. So we get some really good events coming up that we think are really important for the end of this semester. So I do want to open it up if anyone does have any questions for Dr. Roberts, who's willing to stay a couple of extra minutes.
I'll answer the question that was in the chat to start with. Which of the reasons why students cheat are the most common? I would say it's the stress, and stress then leads to poor time management. So those kind of together, working together, lead to students, they're stressed about their financial aid, they're stressed about getting it done in a certain amount of time, they're stressed about, so it all kind of, stress is the almost overarching, and all the other reasons are almost all underneath stress. So that's what I would say is the most common. And then I really do think that relationships are key. And so when the question was, do you think the increase in cheating in an online environment is a result of different or possible weaker relationships? That definitely plays a factor, because if the students don't have the relationship and that respect, then they don't really care. I mean, they do, but some students might not care. They're like, well, this person doesn't know me, and so I'm just gonna do it. So, and then how often does contract cheating? Contract cheating is actually pretty often, because it's anytime anybody does anything for that student, if it's not their own work. Now, we don't see as many papers being bought on those paper mill sites, but we see using Chegg. We see copying or having a friend do the assignment for them. So it happens pretty often. There's another question in the chat that says, students I have talked to say there's no motivation not to cheat on online exams. Any suggestions for addressing this? I would say one, that is the idea of the motivation of why are they even in the class, and making that if it's your class or your friends, it's how are they going to use this material? It's very important that they learn the material. And if they don't see that connection and the reason for that class, then they might be more willing or more motivated to cheat, because they're like, well, I'll just do that. So it's also making sure that your assessments are not just busy work. I mean, sometimes exams can be just busy work, and there might be other ways that you can get at that assessment without doing that.
Camilla, if I can interject here too, one of the things that you might want to think about when you think about how to get students not to cheat on online exams is to let those exams be open resource. So what will happen is if they can use their resources and you've written your exam to maybe get a higher level of information or something like that, then you're probably getting rid of a lot of the issue by prevention, because you don't have to worry about them using their book because they can use their book. You don't have to worry about them using their notes because they can use their notes. So there might be other ways to kind of set up the assessment to allow them to use resources, and then maybe they have to produce knowledge in a slightly different way. That might be an option that would get around this issue entirely.
I would definitely agree with that. Any other questions? Everybody's
Well,
quiet today.
one of the things that I love about Dr. Roberts is she's very available for us to kind of pick her brain in the future too. So if anyone has any questions that they want to follow up with Camilla after, I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. So please join me and thank Camilla for her time today. We'll archive this presentation as we do with all of those. But thank you so much, Camilla.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you, all of you. We will see you hopefully next Wednesday at noon, same bat time, same bat channel. Like I said, we'll be talking about teaching first generation students next week and student mental health the week after. Have a great rest of your semester.